One of the interesting, perhaps peculiar minhagim of the Leil HaSeder is the pouring of wine when we get to the 10 plagues. And this minhag has been accepted by almost all Ashkenazim and Sfaradim across the Jewish community. And the minhag essentially is as follows. It's slightly different between the Sfaradim and Ashkenazim. The Sfaradim, when we get to the 10 plagues, i.e. Dam, Esh, Temirot, Ashan, the 10 plagues, and then the Tzach, Adash, Be'achav, 16 in total, the Balabait, the person leading the Seder, pours from his cup into a basin at each of these 16 places, and by the end of the 16 he's completed his cup, and then the wine in the basin is then thrown away. The minhag of the Ashkenazim is very similar, is that they take from the cup, they sprinkle with their fingers at each of these points as well. Now, where did this minhag develop from, and what's the purpose of it, and is it worthwhile for a person to continue this minhag? So, the source, the origin of this, the first time it's mentioned, is in about the 13th century by the Rokeach Eliezer of Worms in Europe, in Germany. And he writes this minhag, and this developed amongst the European Rishonim and Ashkenazim. And then the Arizal saw this minhag, took it on, and then this minhag, because of the Arizal, spread amongst the Oriental and Eastern Sfaradim, to the extent that today almost all communities do this. Now, what's the reason for this minhag? So there are later interpretations. In the 19th century, the idea being that whilst we are celebrating the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu delivered us through the 10 plagues, at the same time we take some sadness and some regret at the fact that the Egyptians did perish. Like the Hachamim tell us that we're not meant to be overly happy when wicked people die and are punished. And so to represent that, we as if lose some wine. Wine is happiness and good things. So we lose some of it to represent our sadness to the fact that Egyptians died. But the initial reason, the original reasons given for this, is somewhat superstitious in the sense that whilst we are talking about the 10 plagues, we are saying that, look, these 10 plagues which fell upon the Egyptians should not fall upon us. And that's why, because of this, all kinds of different ideas spread to all different kinds of, especially Oriental places and countries, that they would take the wine spilled and they would pour it into the properties of people who are their enemies of the Jewish people, and that's recorded that the Jews of Kurdistan would do that. Then there is the minhag of the Iraqis, which is recorded that at each point that the blood would be spilled, they would mention another enemy, and so on and so forth. All kinds of things developed from this. And it's important to recognize that when we do these things, that we don't do them with a superstitious idea in our mind. This is a minhag. If this is a person's minhag, then fine, one should continue it. But there is nothing intrinsically dangerous about this wine. There is nothing scary about this wine. I've seen in people, once they pour their wine, they won't speak until it's been spilled into someone else's property, and so on and so forth. All of these things are superstitious and are wrong. The main point of this is to raise within us, and within the children in particular, the idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the plagues, and we're trying to bring it alive by pouring it, and that's it. It's not more than that. It shouldn't take on its own peculiar and superstitious nature to it, which is why the minhag of the Western Sfaradim was never to take this on, because this originated in Europe and was only spread amongst the Oriental Sfaradim because of the Arizal, and as is known, the Western Sfaradim didn't really take on the customs of the Arizal. This is why this practice doesn't happen amongst the Western Sfaradim. But in any case, when we do this, if this is our minhag, both the Ashkenazim and the Sfaradim, we should be conscious of the fact that we are doing this to bring alive the 10 plagues and to remember the kindness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the 10 plagues, and not to take on all the other superstitious things which have developed with it.